Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I'm going to be doing a review of one of my most highly anticipated books of 2019 already. This is The Winter of the Witch by Katherine Arden. So of course The Winter of the Witch rounds out the Winter Night trilogy, which began with The Bear and the Nightingale and continued on with The Girl in the Tower. So we're coming to the end of Vazia's journeys, and I was very excited to read this book, so thank you so much to Ebury for sending me a copy of this book. The Winter of the Witch comes out on the 10th of January in the UK and on the 8th of January in the US. You'll be able to get your hands on this book very, very soon. Before I begin, I just really quickly wanted to say that I received a copy of this book from the publisher in exchange for an honest review. However, this does not change my opinion on the book whatsoever. And one last thing, obviously this is the last book in a trilogy. It's probably going to have some spoilers for the first two books, so if you have not read The Bear and the Nightingale or The Girl in the Tower, I would say turn back now, because this is going to be very spoiler heavy for those two books. However, if you want to watch my video review that I did last year of The Girl in the Tower, I can link that down below. I love this trilogy. I make no secret of the fact that I love this trilogy so much. It's one of my favorite book series ever, and I was very excited and also a little bit nervous to get my hands on this because obviously finishing up a trilogy, especially when it is something that's kind of so beloved as the Winter Night trilogy, is very difficult. However, I'm very happy to say that Katherine Arden really hit the nail on the head with this one. Our story begins pretty much where The Girl in the Tower left off. So of course Moscow has burnt to the ground, Vazia is in the middle of it, and things are not going great for her. And this book really punches you in the face really early on. It's kind of a tough read in a lot of ways. However, I think that the way that Katherine Arden writes the events of this book is really well done. Everything feels very necessary, and I really enjoyed the plot of this book. I don't want to go into it too much because I feel like that's just spoiler territory, but I am very happy to say that in a way I feel like this book really got back to what The Bear and the Nightingale was all about, which is those kind of history blended with folklore, with fairy tales, and that felt like much more of a fantasy book than The Girl in the Tower did, and I really liked The Girl in the Tower. However, it felt like a very different book from The Bear and the Nightingale. And The Bear and the Nightingale is obviously the reason that I'm reading all of these books, because I love that so much, but I really feel like this gets back to what these books are all about. It's got a much heavier blend of fantasy with the history, and there is actually an author's note that I would suggest you read when you finish the book, all about sort of the actual things that happened that influenced the plot of this book. Vazia is of course our main character, and she continues to be one of the most kick-ass female characters in fantasy right now. Her character arc, starting from her as a young child in The Bear and the Nightingale as she's growing up, is just astonishing, and I really love that. I really like the way that she feels very real. She makes some dumb mistakes. I don't agree with everything that she says and does, however I really understand where she's coming from. I really enjoyed watching her kind of sweep through these stories, fighting against the patriarchy and against sort of her expected position as a woman in medieval Russia, particularly with Catholicism coming through. She really comes into her own identity as basically a witch in this book, and I really love that. I feel like the Vazia in this book is the best Vazia we've got, which is saying a lot because she's amazing in all of them. We get to see some older characters in this book as well, people who have popped up throughout the trilogy. We really get a great sense of Vazia's relationship with her brother Sasha. He's a big part of this book, and I really enjoyed sort of watching their relationship grow, because of course in the first book he did leave when she was very young, so she's kind of rekindling her relationship with her beloved brother, and it's just so beautifully done. We also get a little bit more of her relationship with Olga, her older sister, and with her niece as well, and I love books that have those really strong family connections, and I feel like this book really pulls them together, especially with her brother. Again, this book deals more with the kind of folklore, so we get a lot more of those creatures and her kind of establishing relationships with some of these creatures, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a couple of relationships that she has in this book, whether they are really strong or really poor, good or bad, that are just so incredibly well done. I really love the setting of this book. I feel like the setting in this really stands out. So of course in the first book it takes place mostly in the sort of rural woods in northern Russia where she is from. In the second book it takes place much more in Moscow itself, and in this book we get to travel some lands in between sort of fiction and reality, and it's just incredibly cool. and it's incredibly well done, and apparently this is really, really strongly influenced by actual Russian folklore. The Fantasy Inn did a wonderful review of this book and talks about some of the Easter eggs in this book, so I will link that down below if you want to see. I would highly, highly encourage you check that out because so much of this went over my head, but if you like Russian folklore, if it's something you're familiar with, I think you'll really love this, particularly those settings. I thought midnight and the sort of concept of midnight was really cool and really well done. Something that she does in this book is she travels through midnight, basically. She learns that she can kind of reach different places at midnight. It's a whole thing, and it's really, really cool, and it's really well done, and sort of the concepts of the magic really come together in this book, and I just loved watching that so much because I feel like we get the strongest sense of what the magic is like in this world in this particular book. Overall, I really, really loved The Winter of the Witch. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars, which I think might be my highest rating for this trilogy. I think I gave maybe the first one 4 and the second one 4, but I really just was blown away by this book. It's a beautiful end to the whole series. I absolutely loved it. The descriptions of the snow and the cold and the magic are perfect. The characters are amazing, and if you're a fan of the first 2 books, you're gonna really love this. So in the comments below, let me know if you love this series as much as I do, if you've read it before, what your thoughts on it are, and if you're excited to read this book as well. I would love to hear from you. Also, if you have read this, I would love to talk to you about it, so maybe through DMs on Twitter or something like that. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.